Is there any specific moment that you would attribute to getting that feeling that you want to come to terms with, your heritage and playing that in movies more?
Yeah, that's just happened like just recently in the last couple of years. And I think it has a lot to do with like the collective cultural awakening that's been going on with not only like the Me Too movement, but also Black Lives Matter and just this like reckoning we're all going through, I think, as a society right now. And so when I was coming up in the game, like, because it was like, I really feel like Hollywood is so lazy. Like they will just try to box you in because they just don't want to do the work of thinking you can do more than that. And so I always was afraid, one, that playing too many Middle Eastern parts was going to pigeonhole me, but also I had this thing where I felt like when I got a Middle Eastern role that people were going to think the only reason I got it was because it was Middle Eastern, like not because I was talented. And there was also this thing that would happen in my career where like I would get cast even in a role that was just like a white role, just a normal role, whatever. White, maybe not white, like just had a normal non-ethnic name. And then after casting me, they would want to change my character's name to something Middle Eastern. This would happen many times. And I used to not, like the first time that happened, I asked them not to do that. And they were cool with it and they heeded my wish. And the reason was that, I'll tell you why it bothered me, was that it's not like they had written a Middle Eastern role or an ethnic role to give an opportunity to an ethnic actor. Instead, I had to compete with a pool of white actors who are afforded a lot more opportunities than I am. And I win for my talent and my merit. And then they want to get points for diversity after the fact. And that's not right to me. It's like, you should have done this before then, because I didn't want the perception to be that I only competed with 10 girls for this part, when the reality was I had competed with 400 girls for the part. But as time went on and I began to really understand how important visibility was and inclusion is, and that if I hid behind some whitewashed version of myself, or like, whitewash the name of a character, then how is that visibility going to really happen? And I started to realize, it's less about what this character's name is, and it's more about what kind of character this is. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, it's fine if you want to, like it happened actually in Snowpiercer. Like originally my character's name was Cleo. And all of a sudden when things changed behind the scenes there, I became Zara Farami. And I had a moment where I was like, do I want to do this? And I realized, maybe it's a good thing. We need to see Middle Eastern people on screen to show Hollywood that like we can play ball, and also just like for culture, for representation. So I had a conversation with them of like, that's okay, I'm down with this, but I just don't want it to now become followed by a slew of other stereotypes. And so they were cool with that too. And we had the conversation and they assured me that like I wasn't suddenly going to become, similar with like when I did 24 Legacy and they were, coming after me pretty hard to play that role. I told them like the only way I'll do this is if you never make my character a terrorist in this show. There cannot be some twist where I'm the one who's the bad guy. And they assured me of that as well. So it's basically been this dance of like getting into being, also like, undoing and unlearning like internalized white supremacy, to be quite frank. Like growing up, I did feel like all those things that get put into our minds that I don't know, white is more American and white is prettier and more valid in some way. And of course I want to just acknowledge, I know I'm a light-skinned Iranian girl, so I have benefited from that. And I'm not, that I'm not happy about that. It makes me sad that a darker skinned actress just as good as me might not get something just because of that. That's extremely messed up. And I'm glad the world is now changing. But I've started to, with this whole tide and sea change of inclusion and representation, I'm like, of course I want to be part of that. So I'm embracing it way more and just getting a little more involved behind the scenes, which was also scary to do when I was younger, because like I said, I just like never wanted to get fired, and I was always made to feel so disposable and replaceable. So now I'm like, you know, but you can't get that without some experience and age. Like now I'm like, I don't need you. You need me. So
I'm so happy to hear that now.
Yeah, it's about having enough of those conversations where you protect yourself from suddenly becoming a radical Muslim just because you're playing a Middle Eastern role.